Yvonne De Carlo's career began in the heyday of the Hollywood studio system and ended with classic 80s-era camp. From the Munsters to Broadway, De Carlo did it all, achieving icon status along the way. Yvonne De Carlo was born Margaret Middleton in 1922 in Vancouver, British Columbia. Her mother left home at 16 to become a ballet dancer, but dreamed of a life in the movie business. She named her child Margaret in order to call her Peggy, as in Baby Peggy, a popular child star of the silent film era. When Margaret was 3 years old, her salesman father walked out. Embroiled in a few scams gone wrong, William Middleton left Canada and promised to collect his family once he'd settled down. That was the last Margaret ever heard of him. In her memoir, Yvonne, an autobiography, she wrote, "My own assumption is that he died before he had the chance to discover that his baby Peggy had become a Hollywood actress, or I think he would have tried to contact me." Determined to make her daughter the star that she never was, Marie De Carlo took a teenage Margaret Middleton from Vancouver to Los Angeles in the 1930s. Margaret had natural singing talent, but Marie enrolled her in a dance academy in addition to a regular school. Marie worked as a server and took on other gigs to support them until her daughter was discovered by Hollywood. When their visas expired, they returned to Vancouver, a cycle they repeated 3 times. Whenever they were in Vancouver, mother and daughter lived with Marie's parents, the De Carlos. Margaret would eventually add their last name to her middle name to come up with her professional name, Yvonne De Carlo. De Carlo's breakout role, and the one which got her a long-term contract with Universal Pictures, came in 1945's Salome, where she danced. De Carlo played a 19th-century Austrian refugee who meets and falls for an American criminal who reminds her of her dead true love. The project was created for star Maria Montez, who was unable to make the film, so producer Walter Wanger set up a talent search to find, quote, the most beautiful girl in the world to play the title role. De Carlo, a Paramount actress with a few bit parts to her name, beat out 20,000 women for the role. Wanger pulled out all the stops to create interest around the movie and De Carlo. He leaked pictures of her to newspapers with the story that a service member in the Royal Canadian Air Force waged a grassroots campaign to get De Carlo in the film. Of course, it was a publicity stunt, and the serviceman was her cousin. Beginning with Salome, where she danced in 1945, De Carlo became Universal Studios' go-to actor to play vamps, temptresses, and femme fatales in films that were marketed as exotic.
Every man disrobes me.
I'd say, ma'am, there isn't much to disrobe.
She played women from a variety of races and cultures in films like Song of Scheherazade, Slave Girl, Casbah, River Lady, and The Desert Hawk, along with major roles in a number of 1950s westerns. After a slew of appearances in not terribly well-regarded pictures, De Carlo moved into more prestigious fare when she was cast by director Cecil B. DeMille as Sephora, wife of Moses, in the 1956 biblical epic The Ten Commandments. In an interview with Hedda Hopper, De Carlo explained how it happened, saying, "I had done a picture at Metro titled Sombrero, which wasn't too much of a hit, but I had portrayed a saintly type of woman, similar to what DeMille had in mind for Sephora. He saw the picture and promptly said, 'You're it.'" The Ten Commandments earned 7 Academy Award nominations and was the highest-grossing film of 1956. In the socially conservative United States of the mid-20th century, it wasn't deemed proper for an unmarried woman, especially a public figure, to be open and frank about her sex life. But in keeping with her seductive movie persona, De Carlo allowed herself to be marketed as an eligible woman who was seen in public with a long list of suitors. Although many of these relationships were short-lived, they were authentic and passionate. In her 1987 memoir, De Carlo explicitly detailed about 24 encounters with famous and powerful men. She recalled her first date with Burt Lancaster, writing, "It was so spontaneous and so explosive, I thought I was playing a scene from a blazing romantic novel."
He couldn't drop her. She was in his mind, in his blood, and if loving her meant tangling with a killer, he was ready for that too.
She went on to write about her affair with millionaire Howard Hughes, recalling, "We somehow managed to consummate a relationship, and it wasn't bad. In fact, it got better as time went on. It might have been on the clinical side, but that was the way with Howard Hughes. Her post-Hughes rebound fling was Robert Stack. She also took up with opera singer Cesare Siepi and Prince Ali Khan of Persia. By the 1960s, De Carlo's Hollywood career was fading. She took roles in B-movies and made guest appearances on TV shows. Then, in 1962, her life took a downward spiral. Her husband, stuntman Bob Morgan, had a horrific accident while filming the movie How the West Was Won. He lost his left leg after it was crushed on set. The couple sued MGM, but the court ruled that the production company wasn't responsible.
Yvonne was like Atlas holding up the world in terms of financial support of other people.
Medical expenses were piling up, and De Carlo worked hard to cover the bills. She took to working in nightclubs, but was slowly going deeper into debt. It was then that Universal Pictures offered her the role of Lily Munster in their new sitcom, The Munsters. Desperate for work, De Carlo signed on, despite the role being so different from what she typically played on screen.
She was embarrassed by the thought of doing it, but her agents and her bank book told her, go audition for this, you need the part, you need the money.
Little did she know that Lily Munster would be the character she'd be most remembered for. The other two adult members of the Munsters were closely associated with their TV work. Car 54, Where Are You stars Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis. De Carlo was a movie star whose career was on the decline. Gwynne and Lewis weren't happy with her casting. Lewis told author Stephen Cox, "We went down to the producers and screamed bloody murder. Fred and I thought she would not be right in the part at all. Experience told us we were wrong."
Herman, you may not believe this, but I'm Sonny Liston.
Nevertheless, De Carlo acted the part of the aloof movie star in the early days of the series. As Gwynne remembered to Stephen Cox, Yvonne played better than thou for a while. At first, she would intentionally show up late, forcing the cast and crew to wait on her arrival. In the middle of the first season of The Munsters, actor Beverly Owen quit the role of Marilyn Munster, and producers replaced her with Pat Priest, who quickly earned De Carlo's animosity. In an interview with Stephen Cox, Priest remembered, "I remember Yvonne saying to me one day, 'There's one thing I want you to know, young lady. Don't you ever upstage me.' At that point, I didn't know what I had done. The director had asked me to step forward." De Carlo eventually thawed toward Priest, and they became friends.
I think of Yvonne as being kind of a vampire version of Donna Reed.
Lily Munster on The Munsters is De Carlo's most famous role, but she wasn't the producer's first choice, or even the first actor to play the matriarch of the family. The Munsters pilot was taped in early 1964 and starred Joan Marshall as Lily. CBS ordered the show to series contingent on changes, namely replacing Marshall. Network executives feared that Marshall bore too many similarities to Morticia Addams on ABC's mid-60s monster comedy, The Addams Family.
Oh, that dress does do things for you. Black is such a happy color.
Producers Joe Connolly and Bob Mosher auditioned many actors, ultimately deciding on De Carlo, who added a maternal quality to the character not seen in Marshall's take.
Allow me to present my wife, Lily.
Pleased to meet you.
De Carlo may have agreed to play Lily Munster, but she wasn't necessarily excited about it. In a 1964 interview with the Los Angeles Times, she said, "I thought very carefully before deciding to do this show, because once you sign the contract, you're stuck." Her apprehension grew when the makeup team told her she'd be wearing a green face and sunken cheeks. James Bodden, a reporter who interviewed De Carlo in 1975, claims she had a breakdown when she first transformed into Lily Munster. Telling Fox News, she said when they put her in the green makeup, she burst into tears. She said, "So it's come to this?" But she went on, "In Hollywood, you have to roll with the punches if you want to keep working." De Carlo felt significantly better when she realized the crew had no plans to make her look hideous on screen. Telling the LA Times, "They decided to glamorize me. My makeup doesn't take longer than a complete glamour makeup for the movies." Having made it as a big movie star in the 1940s and a prominent television presence in the 1960s, De Carlo set out to conquer another medium in the 1970s. In doing so, she enjoyed a major comeback. Following a successful stint starting in 1968 as Dolly Gallagher Levi in the touring company of the smash hit musical Hello, Dolly, De Carlo landed the part of Carlotta Campion in the 1971 original Broadway production of Follies, with music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim. The show would earn 11 Tony nominations and win 7. None of those were for De Carlo, but she made her mark as the originator of the modern Broadway standard I'm Still Here, sung from the point of view of a cynical and seasoned entertainer. After a 70-episode, 2-season run, CBS canceled the Munsters in 1966. The cast didn't stay in close touch until some of the actors reunited for the 1981 made-for-TV movie, The Munsters' Revenge. For De Carlo, one friendship bloomed in the 1990s after she appeared as a guest on Vicki Lawrence's daytime talk show, Vicki, and producers surprised her with a visit from Butch Patrick, who played De Carlo's TV son Eddie on the series. Patrick told Coming Soon, "After that, we became friends. I started going up and visiting her, and she was somewhat of a recluse, living in North Los Angeles." Patrick made sure De Carlo's needs were met, setting up deliveries of food and movies and updating her on showbiz news. Together, Patrick and De Carlo met fans at sci-fi conventions and made cameos in what would be one of De Carlo's last acting roles, the 1995 TV movie Here Come the Munsters. By the 1980s, years of Munsters reruns left De Carlo strongly identified with the role of Lily Munster. The historical dramas and biblical epics in which she'd starred in the 1940s and 1950s had fallen out of favor. So De Carlo leaned into the Munsters lane, taking roles in cheeky horror movies and family-friendly fare.
Hugo,
Yes?
if I didn't hate you,
Yes?
I'd love you.
In the late 1970s, De Carlo acted in scary, gory projects like Satan's Cheerleaders, Guyana, Cult of the Damned, and The Silent Scream. After reprising Lily in 1981's The Munsters' Revenge, De Carlo returned to horror by way of Play Dead, a masterpiece of murder, and American Gothic.
Well, I'm not just going to sit around here and deteriorate.
De Carlo wound down her career in the 90s with brief appearances on the TV shows Dream On and Tales from the Crypt, and 2 final made-for-television films in 1995. The Disney-produced The Barefoot Executive, and a would-be Munsters called Here Come the Munsters, in which De Carlo made a cameo as a restaurant patron, handing off the character of Lily to Veronica Hamill. In the last decade of her life, De Carlo endured a string of personal and familial tragedies that profoundly affected her health and well-being. With her husband Robert Morgan, De Carlo raised 2 sons, Bruce and Michael Morgan. In 1997, 39-year-old Michael died of brain damage caused by a stroke. James Bodden told Fox News, "It just preyed on her mind. All she would talk about was her son." Arguably, the stress and distress over the premature death of her son was a factor in De Carlo, too, having a stroke, just 1 year after her son. Already largely retired from acting, De Carlo was unable to continue working. She moved into the motion picture and television country home and hospital in Woodland Hills, California. And in 2007, the 84-year-old star of screens big and small died of natural causes, attributed to old age. De Carlo's friend Kevin Burns perhaps put it best, saying, "I think she will be best remembered as the definitive Lily Munster. She was the vampire mom to millions of baby boomers. In that sense, she's iconic."